Well, hello, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I think we are about to start. We are 5 minutes late, but we are all in attendance. So, welcome to the MOTORWAYS session. Is that okay?
Like this, like this.
It's okay? Okay. So I have to fix my arm in this rigid angle, so I don't know if I will ever recover from it. But so welcome again. We will start without further ado the session on Motors of the Sea. Well, it's very important for us. It's a very large session. That was the first one that we have after the approval, well, after the submission of the detailed implementation plan. Brian Simpson will tell you everything about it. Just in a nutshell, what will happen is that we will have Brian presenting his report, speaking about the presentation of his report to the Parliament. Then we'll have the institutional stakeholders session, and that I will introduce you to afterwards, and then the industrial stakeholders session, and last but not least, we'll have the round table on Motors of the Seas. So without further ado, Brian Simpson, European Coordinator for Motors of the Sea. Brian.
Well, thank you, Jose, and thank you all for coming this morning to the Motorways of the Seas workshops. And just the sheer number of you would seem to indicate that we've come a long way in a not so long time span with Motorways of the Sea. Now, today I shall just briefly present the detailed implementation plan. It's the first work programme outlining the vision for the future of Motorways of the Sea concept as part of the maritime dimension in the 10T. And I'd like to start with and underline how important the Motorways of the Sea policy is for the overall integration of the EU transport corridors. I spend a lot of my time trying to convince my colleagues that we should work together. Now, this detailed implementation plan gives me an opportunity to do that. Now, how important a dimension of the 10T policy are we? Well, it's a very important dimension. I'm sure you've heard me say many times in the past that the maritime component is 40% of internal trade and 75% of external trade. We have in Europe more than 800 regular ro-ro connections and container services. They call in more than 400 ports and connect with hundreds of ports worldwide. Now, it's estimated that in 2014 the EU ports handle 3.8 billion tonnes of cargo, and around 3 billion tonnes are hinterland traffic that requires the handling either pre or post carriage by truck, rail or barge. There are 79 EU maritime ports are situated directly within 1 out of 9 core corridors, and these ports account for 2/3 of the total European port traffic. And finally, let me underline the growth aspect. European ports are directly linked to over 800,000 enterprises, generating in total the direct and indirect employment of about 3 million people.
So next speaker is Mr. Marco.
I was entrusted with the role of the European Coordinator of the Sea, in which we had to present a detailed implementation plan. Now, this document is only the beginning. Your contributions, as well as the inputs from the Member States and the European Parliament, is necessary to further enrich this policy and determine orientation of our future Motorways of the Seas actions. Once consultation has taken place, the plan will constitute a clear and precise guidance for the future direction of Motorways of the Sea policy. In other words, in what areas forthcoming projects should be orientated and how much money would be available. And I stress at this point your involvement. You are the stakeholders. I've been at great pains all throughout this process that we involve you, the stakeholders, and the European Parliament and the Member States in what we produce. And that holds good now. The document is built within the 3 development pillars for shipping and ports that are identified as my key priorities. You're probably getting sick to death of me keep pushing these, but I'll keep pushing them anyway until it's second nature to us all. And those 3 priorities are the environment, the integration of maritime transport and logistics chain, and maritime safety, the traffic management and human element of it all. And let me highlight the important points. First of all, the environment. This is a very important area, and it is worth noting that the shipping industry is the only industry with global regulation for air emissions. Motorways of the Sea can help the industry to comply with applicable EU and IMO legislation, mostly related to the environment, and most should favour projects related to A, air quality, in other words, help the industry to comply with air quality emissions and the sector area, support further development of LNG, methanol, alternative fuels, as well as explore other technical options, to continue to look into ways of lowering LNG storage and logistic costs, and work will continue on fuel efficiency and the use of fossil fuel in order to reduce the CO2 footprint. Second point is operational pollution. Further develop and pilot onboard treatment services like ballast water, recycling, black and grey water and so on. Look to accidental pollution. Measures aimed at improving safety, education, training. These practices are needed in order to improve global safety levels and further alleviate and avoid accidental pollution. And we need to look at environmental compensation measures and the financing of green shipping. Now, the second priority, the integration of maritime and logistics chains. We need to deal with integration of maritime transport in the global logistics chain. We need to support further short sea shipping. We need to develop flow management services to support both onshore organisations and ships in optimising overall traffic flows. We need to improve the last mile connection support. You'll excuse me saying last miles. I'm used to miles, not kilometres. Or we could change it to last kilometres, but I'll stick to last mile. Support further information and communication technologies so ships, ports and stakeholders can exchange information within interoperable systems and processes, both from the voyage management services point of view as well as an efficient cargo procedures. Finally, our outermost regions, I'm not forgetting here, must should support their connection with the mainland so they are not forgotten in the overall 10T policy, and let's enhance the geostrategic potential of islands by, for instance, promoting LNG refueling stations. The maritime safety is the third priority, the third pillar, the DIP lists a number of goals and objectives that should be attained thanks to the MOS programme. In safety, development, contingency planning and exercise drills in certain regions for dealing with emergencies and evacuation, for example cruise ships. The human element, we need to reduce the link to human error, promote interdisciplinary skills, encourage seafarers to adopt a holistic view and provide them with the understanding of the general context of the industry that they're working in. And of course, with the new technologies, we need a new approach to training for those technologies. In traffic management, we need to develop maritime ICT and maritime information systems. Develop information sharing platforms. Rebalance traditional captain-based information systems with shoreside electronic information systems. So what is next? The document is comprehensive and includes an array of possible actions based on the three pillars that I have identified. It comprises a number of topics that covers the full spectrum of possible TEN-T development options. The next 12 months of consultation process should allow me to limit the number of development actions. Therefore, Motorways of the Seas will be better focused and specific to the extent possible. As I've said, I will engage in a close dialogue with you, the industry stakeholders, with the Member States and with the European Parliament to further fine-tune the most important actions that should be financed from the MOS budget. In conclusion, this document will be crucial for the future development and further development of EU maritime transport. Numerous data related to motorways of the seas has been collected so far, either through experience resulted from past or ongoing projects, of which there are 80, as well as close and regular discussions with you. The detailed implementation plan reflects various views and it constitutes a basis for a comprehensive work programme providing an integrated transport approach and other work plans with the 9 strategic vertical corridors. At last, ladies and gentlemen, at last, we are giving a serious focus in the TEN-T to our maritime strategy. Yes, we're late to the party, but at last we are giving it the priority it needs. And I thank you all for your attendance today and for your attention to what I've said. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brian. So we will start now with the institutional session. And the first stakeholder is Gesine Meissner. She's well known. She's a member of the European Parliament. Please, Gesine. Particularly, she's a member of the Transport Committee in the European Parliament, where she has worked very closely with Brian Simpson for the last 5 or 6 years at least. And very importantly, she is chair of the European Parliament Intergroup on sea, rivers, islands, and coastal areas. So more maritime than this, it is not possible. Gesine, please.
So, yeah, hello ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure for me to speak here on behalf of the European Parliament, and it's always a pleasure for me to be close to Brian Simpson, who really was an absolutely fantastic chair, and I like to cooperate with him, although he was of another political party, but it doesn't matter. So now it's on Motorways of the Sea, and as was pointed out, really I'm coming from the north of Germany, and And my first name, Gesine, it's a Frisian name, it comes from the coast. Maybe that's why I'm so passionate about ships, vessels, and maritime transport in general. That's why really it's a pleasure for me to be here. I have 4 points actually to mention. Some are similar to Brian's. I try to not really repeat what he said, but to add something additionally. My points are connectivity in general, second is environment, like Brian, third is safety, and the fourth is growth and jobs. Connectivity, I think it was pointed out how important the ports are. Some even say it's not 35% of global transport, but even maybe 90%. I don't know. I like it better to say 90%. It's still more importance for the vessels and the motorways of the sea. And of course, that's why it's a very important corridor, so to say, although it's not a corridor for the 10T network, and we have very much to focus on that. And besides, since the global-wide population is growing, the global-wide trade will grow as well, and of course there will be more ships around the world. And since I work for that, and you of course as well, that Europe will stay as important as we are right now, even if we have a decreasing population, then it's very important to focus on ports, on motorways of the sea, and everything that's in a good shape. And of course we can improve something. We have to improve with the hinterlands of ports, for example, and we have to improve inland waterway use. That's what Ryan mentioned as well. And of course we should facilitate the whole ongoing transport. For example, with the with a single window in ports, it's not yet implemented, although it should be implemented by now. The directive were there, or was it regulation? I always mix it up, but the legislative things, process was there, and it's not yet done. That is something very important, connectivity to the world and within Europe. Second point is environment. And I think we are quite far developed, especially in the north of Europe, because of the Zika zones. You know that the Zika zones were implemented in the 1st of January 2015, and that's why everybody was forced to be progressive regarding environmental friendliness, and that's why LNG is quite far developed, as well as I just recently went by a zero-emission ferry from Stockholm to Turku. By the way, it's a very nice trip to go. When you ever have time, do it, please. And yeah, it's a zero-emission vessel. LNG terminals are in place over there in the Baltic Sea and the North Sea, because really people were forced to look for that. And I really would like very much that the IMO would propose something for the rest of the world as well. We have an unfair competition, so to say, for all those who go in the ports in the Mediterranean. Still, we are allowed to have 3.5% of NOx, in the Baltic Sea is only 0.1, and later on it will be 0.5 in the Mediterranean. It's still more. And of course, whenever you are kind of forced to be environmentally friendly, you will progress in being that, really, and having the right infrastructure in place. And we have this Clean Power of Transport package in the Parliament. It was decided, and there the ports have time until 2022 to have LNG terminals everywhere available. At first, it was a quite fast process, especially in Netherlands, for example, in Germany, and in the north again because of the Zika zone. And right now it's a little bit slowed down because of the low oil price. I don't want to have higher oil prices, of course, but I would like to have a quicker implementation of LNG in place. And it's not only LNG, it's zero emission, it's something with hydrogen, and so many things are possible. Scrubbers is, of course, just an interim method you can use. Anyway, it's very important for the environment to have something in place that's good for the future, ready for the future. And that helps us as well to be competitive, because worldwide we have quite good knowledge that can be as best practice be brought to other parts of the world as well. Third point was safety. Safety, of course, is very important, not only because of the environment. We have double hull tankers in place right now. It's obligatory even on barges on inland waterways. And of course, we want very much to have safe trips. Ships are a very safe mode of transport, not only environmentally friendly in general, but as well safe. And I just want to mention something on the safety point, because it was not said before, but in the Parliament we focused as well on the impact of the refugee crisis on transport in general, on the logistic and transport chain. And of course, you all know that in the Mediterranean, some vessels which are dedicated to transport freight, all of a sudden meet a rubber boat full of refugees and save them. Of course, they're not ready to do so, and I hope that the refugee crisis can be solved insofar as the people can stay at home and have a safe life over there. But as long as it's ongoing, of course, it's another thing that really has to be mentioned. That's why I thought it's kind of safety or saving people's life, although motorways of transport are not dedicated to be in place for that. And last but not least, I mentioned growth and jobs. The Blue Growth Strategy actually does mention cruises. Cruises is really growing market, and cruises go to ports, they go on motorways of the sea, and they are part of the Blue Growth Strategy. But in general, there will be by far more jobs still in future in the motorways of the sea, and not only for boys, but as well for girls. I always like to underline that, not only because I'm female, but I know that, for example, a captain on a vessel can be a female as well. And I was asked once by girls in the school class A, and when I have a baby, what do I do then? And I said, in case you have a baby, maybe you can stay onshore and do education or whatever. So it's many attractive jobs, but we have to look for good skills and good possibilities for education, and in order to really have an attractive sector for everybody who can have a very good job in future in this case. And something else, just at last, I wanted to mention, of course, motorways of the sea and ports are as well involved in another alternative energy strategy, because you know that offshore platforms, they need maintenance, they need pieces that are brought outside on the sea, on the platforms, and so we have offshore terminals right now in place. It's a good opportunity for ports to develop further, and it will be more crowded even on the motorways of the sea, but I think we can manage it, especially because we have a very good coordinator. So I'm happy to hear all the other speakers, and I'm looking forward for the discussion afterwards. Thank you.
That we show that we share common objectives, and that not all the monies are enough, but if we put them all working together for the same objectives, we'll do something about maritime transport. Thank you very much. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the first person that is incarnating since my university professor in the early 80s, that was discussing marine affairs. The first person that is putting out a vision, well, the Dutch vision, an integrated vision for maritime transport policy.
Where there is
she's the director. Please, Brigitte.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks for the opportunity to speak here. And we organized during our presidency a high-level meeting on short sea shipping, and actually I would like to focus on the results of that and the outcomes and the recommendations of that high-level meeting. Mr. Simpson has just given his presentation on the detailed implementation plan for the future orientation of the motorways of the seas, and I would like to give some first reactions taking into account the outcomes of the high-level meeting on short sea shipping. The 5 bullets, maybe they told me there was some thing to work on to put on the next slide, but there isn't. Here it is. This one? The red one. The green. Okay, there it is. Thanks. And the 5 points you see here are some items that could possibly give more focus to this implementation plan. They are linked to the recommendations of the short sea shipping meeting, and that I will present to you in my next slides. I think the bullets speak for themselves. With regard to the reduction of administrative burden, I would like to mention that this can not only help to support the attractiveness of doing business, but also can be beneficial for the attractiveness of the profession itself, the seafarers and the officers that are needed on board of the vessels and who might not be eager to do paperwork all day. So on the 15th of February in Amsterdam, we focused on 5 points. have to go on this a lot. We came to recommendations, the next recommendations. Shipping is already, and it was already mentioned by Brian Simpson and by Gesina Meissner, shipping is a sustainable modality. It's an energy efficient modality because of the large volumes of goods that are transported. But still there has to be done a lot. And in the conclusions of the COP21, shipping was not taken into account, but also shipping should become greener. And the ship owners associations already agree on this topic and on these conclusions. And therefore the high-level meeting came to the recommendation that the greening should be stimulated by EU co-financing with instruments like the Green Shipping Financing Tool. And of course these two recommendations fit very well into the first pillar mentioned in the Motorways of the Seas implementation plan. And there is already, and it was mentioned by previous speakers as well, the techniques are already available. LNG, emission reductions, SOx, NOx, techniques, scrubbers, etc. The technique is there, but it is also necessary that it is financial possible for the shipping companies to invest in these. Another recommendation of the high-level meeting was the short sea shipping. Was that short sea shipping should be an integrated part of the whole logistic chain. So it is important not to start organizing the logistics chain when a container is put on the quay in a port, but think and organize from door to door, from origin to destination. Therefore, digitalization and standardization and exchange of information between the different modes of transport in a synchro-model logistic chain is necessary. And ratifying and implementation of the Rotterdam rules is a good instrument for this. And it's good to see that also in the Motorways of the Seas, in this implementation plan, in its second pillar, this policy is taken up. And when we are talking about transporting goods by sea and compare it by transporting goods over land, you must be aware that when, for instance, you want to transport oranges from Spain to the Netherlands, by road you need only one document. When you transport these goods by sea, by short sea shipping, it takes 12 different documents. So we have to work on that. And therefore you can imagine that the fourth recommendation of the high-level meeting focus on the reduction of administrative burdens. The maritime single window is a good instrument for this, but then it should be implemented everywhere in the same way as a machine-to-machine instrument. Customs should be linked to it. We need for that the use of harmonized data. And also here, on the basis of the Rotterdam rules, the ship manifest could be helpful as a multiple-used instrument, as a manifest which could be used also for the transport later in the chain. And the fifth recommendation is concerning blue growth, and it was also mentioned by the Member of Parliament that there are very much activities going on the sea. And she mentions the offshore platforms, but also think about windmill farms, and there are very many other activities going on the seas. And therefore it's necessary that also we are linked to the blue growth and integrated, and our part, shipping should be part of the integrated maritime spatial planning. And also governments and those who are responsible for shipping should take an active interest in this maritime spatial planning to make sure that also in future there is enough space for shipping on our seas. And after good discussions in the high-level meeting on short sea shipping, and I guess here today on the Motorways of the Seas implementation plan, I would say let's get it done together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. pretty good. We have now just attained 200 persons attending the workshop, which is a very large workshop. So Brian, you'll be happy with this. I think that the important thing is that really allowed us to be is this integrated vision where maritime transport is integrated in the global transportation chain. That's exactly the same objective we are pursuing. And we are trying to develop and identify new challenges. One of them is, what about the regulator's view on these integrated transport issues? And with you will be João Carvalho, a very good friend. He is the Portuguese regulator for transport, so the only thing it doesn't regulate is air transport. That's okay, but they will be on time anyway. He has a long past in shipping. He was a ship owner, and which is very good now being a regulator. You have to tell us how you move from one place to the other. But he has an experience of over 40 years in maritime transportation, ports, as a ship owner. Now he is the Portuguese regulator for maritime, for transport, all modes of transport except shipping. João, the floor is yours.
Thank you, José. Thank you, Brian, for the invitation as well. And thank you for listening and these very brief words. Of course, now I am much more related with the road and rail as well as ports and maritime, because my organization, it's a part of being an official organization. I mean, governmental organization. It depends from the Portuguese Parliament, and it's completely independent. And so to regulate these modes of transport, and as I told, mentioned, with the exception of aviation. What I have to say about this MOTORWAYS of the sea, together with the European port system, it's really key elements on this European maritime transport space without barriers, as well as for the transport single market. And we have now here a lot of challenges that will have impact on competitiveness, will have impact on the social dimension, as I mentioned, and which require policy, strategic analysis, like this implementation plan that we have just listened, it was presented today, as well as proactive, very important, proactive action by the regulatory authorities as well as by the competition authorities. Also very important is internationalization of the European Union. And what I mean with this, I mean that for the competitiveness, for the growth, it is justified that we'll have agreements with other parts of the globe. It means that, for example, this TTIP that has been negotiated, at the moment it's also very important because we are talking of around 900 million people if and when this treaty will be finished between Europe, between the European Union and the United States. To have and to follow this global scope, it is very important investment. So it will be necessary a huge amount of investment, and we have here also ship owners on this room, and they know that either in ports, either on board of the vessels, in what concerns the first pillar that Brian has mentioned, I mean the environment. So to have more environmental friends on ports as well, on ships, it's necessary a huge amount of money. So it's necessary that schemes, that combined schemes, either from public funds, I mean member state funds, or European funds, together with private capitals will be necessary. I want also, as a regulator, that we have some concerns, and I'm going to mention two main concerns at the time that there in Portugal that we feel. One concern is the lack of widely application of polluter pays or the user pays principles, because this through an asymmetric and inefficient taxation on the modes of transport, can really bring lack of discussion on the competition. So it's very important these principles that can be mandatory. And I want, as an example of this, I want to mention some projects that have already finished, projects concerning the better green corridors. There were some projects finished, as I mentioned to you, like Costa project, also like Mid-Atlantic Eco-Bonus project, like the Rainfall project, that really have at the end also they demand green corridors and demand also shift from mode of transport, not that doesn't pollute too much compared with railway or compared with the motorways of the sea. The second concern, it's already mentioned it in several fora, either in Brussels, either there in Portugal. It's the case of the operation, port operation contracts, because there is the duality. There is a duality, and this new directive concerning the concessions on general terms, I mean the directive 2014-23 of 2014, really it applies only to port contracts of port concessions, not to all port operation port operations activities. It means that we can have here a very big lack of competition. To finish, I want to thank to José for everything that he has done in the 20 or 23 years. We are very serious on the commission, which he was really very much appreciated from all of us, from the institutional sector. So thanks. I hope that you can follow, you can account with your advice, even that I'm older and some white hair. So anyway, we count on you also to assist and help us. Also, I want to wish successful to Wojtek. Hope that even this method related with the sea are not very easy. Anyway, so I hope at that time also for the sea, as José told, now with rail situations and I know it's quite much better than the rail sector and the road sector. I hope that anyway that you can enjoy the shipping sector and that we are also very much welcome from our community. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, thanks, Kelly. It was not a post-mortem speech, so thank you very much for your support. And now, I mean, all these commitments cannot be done without resources. The man that is responsible for setting the strategic vision and how to use best resources on the CEF for transport development. Stefan Waki is the head of unit for CEF. And what is your fancy name of your unit? It's an investment strategy.
Yeah. Thank you, José. Very good to be with all of you here today to make a brief presentation of where we stand. I guess this is going to work. Yes, it's going to work. Second attempt. Okay, excellent. So we'll make a brief presentation of where we stand on funding and financing in this financing period. You know the tools that are available at EU level. We have the Connecting Europe facility, which is basically traditional grants and more financial instruments. And we have now more and more blending financial instruments, products like FC, which is the investment plan for Europe. So everything that is not grants, with grant money, and we are trying more and more to do this. So where do we stand in the implementation? Very briefly, we had a very successful first call where we allocated close to 13 billion euros. We just evaluated a second call. Member states have now to confirm the proposal of the Commission that Commissioner Bulc announced on Friday, and we propose to select about 6.7 billion euros of money out of the 7.5 that were available. But more and more, as you know, we are spending money in the form of financial instruments. We've been also quite active in the maritime field, in particular with the green shipping proposal that took us about 2 years to put together with our colleagues of the European Investment Bank. And I have the pleasure to announce that on Thursday in the EIB board, on the 16th of June, 2 green shipping instruments were approved by the board, one under the Connecting Europe Facility financial instruments, and one under the FC. I will come back to that later, because this indeed is a massive success for demultiplying the impact of our EU funding in the maritime sector. The outcome, more precisely, of the 2015 call, I mean, generally, as I said, we have been also oversubscribed. For the MOS call, 12 proposals were selected under the general envelope for an amount of 88 million euros, and 1 proposal was selected under the cohesion envelope for an amount of 1 million euros. There will be a third call that will be launched at the end of September. The amounts are not precise yet at this stage. My commissioner will reflect in the coming weeks what to put between the different priorities, but here I will not, I would say, break a big secret to say that, of course, Motorways of the Sea will be part of the priorities that my commissioner will push forward for a call to be launched towards the end of September, with a deadline by the end of January 2017. But like I said, more and more we are trying to do projects that are combining the different instruments, in particular the FC. FC has been quite successful so far for transport. We had 12 transport projects that actually happened. This represents 8.5 billion euros of investments and an impact in jobs of 60,000 jobs created. You can see on the map here where these projects are located across Europe. And more precisely, here you have in red, in the list of the projects that have been selected, those that concern the maritime sector. As you can see, we have quite a number of them that concern your sector. Again, I already mentioned the green shipping facility that went through the EIB board last week. But we have also a certain number of fleet renewal projects in Spain, accessibility of port infrastructure, mostly rail, but also a bit of road for port infrastructure, again in Spain, a Euromed Ro-Ro project in Italy. All these projects, of course, are a good beginning, but we need now to scale up the possibilities offered under FC, and therefore encourage you to come and talk to us or to the colleagues of the European Investment Bank if you have a project that could benefit from it. At the same time, the FC is financing participation in sector fund, multi-sector funds. Some of them, of course, are making big investments also in the maritime sector, and therefore we have now, I would say, an instrument that is starting to deliver also for transport and for the maritime sector. An example here that is worth mentioning is the accessibility of port infrastructure. Of course, some of these projects, you see all the ports that are concerned, some of these projects are helped also by our grants under the CEF. So more and more indeed what we will be doing is blend the CEF grant component, and that is also valid for the third call, and the possibilities offered under FC. But again, this will happen on a case-by-case basis. The CEF FC is work in progress. Of course, we are testing different instruments. We are trying more and more to show the added value of the Connecting Europe facility in piloting projects and schemes that have been difficult to put in place in the past, in particular the deployment of alternative fuels in the maritime sector. This is why we spend quite a lot of time with the EIB on the green shipping facility, on which I will say a couple of words now. So the scheme was approved by the bank on the 16th in the form of 2 schemes, one under the Connecting Europe facility for the Netherlands and another one for Spain in the context of FC. The idea was that the one that we are piloting with the CEF in the Netherlands will be then scaled up under the FC, where of course the means of intervention are much greater, and this has already happened basically at the same time. Of course, now we need to find good projects to finance under the schemes. The colleagues of the EIB will be now talking to the sector, and of course the goal here is to accelerate the deployment of environmental investment in the maritime sector. So more information about it to tell you how this has been set up into practice. I can give you more information if you're interested, if you contact me and my team more directly. But basically here, we are working through your partners in terms of commercial banks. It was thought by us to be easier to proceed in that way instead of reinventing the wheel and creating new, I would say, partnerships. And the guarantee of the EIB is given then for to the part of the funding that concerns the environmental part, let's say, in retrofitting or buying new vessels. It's a risk-sharing framework agreement. The commercial banks, your partners, will be the contact points for dealing with you as beneficiaries. The EIB, of course, is backed up by the EU budget, otherwise it would be difficult for them to extend this type of guarantee mechanism. And we have determined with the EIB that up to 3 billion euros of investment could benefit for these schemes that, like I said, has been already approved by the EIB board last week. More and more we are turning towards blending, and this in particular will be important in the context of the next call. Blending has proven its value in some, again, of projects that touch upon the maritime sector, in particular the Port of Calais and Dublin, in the call that we evaluated last year in July 2015, 2 projects on which we provided grant support to allow for an EIB loan to be granted, or a project bond initiative project to be granted. This, of course, is very important for us because it allows us to demultiply the impact of a limited budget when it comes to grants by helping to deploy a much greater amount of money in terms of investment. Of course, to help you to do all this, we realize that all this, I would say, combination of different instruments may be a bit daunting. The possibility also to engage between commercial banks with the EIB and structuring projects differently may be difficult. This is why we are financing the advisory hub at the EIB to help you with project ideas that you may have, how to structure it better, and I encourage you to contact directly the hub in case you have such a project. So I will just summarize now in order not to be too long. The key messages, of course, is that SEF grants are remaining part of the picture, of course, but they are limited, and therefore we need to be using this SEF grant in a more innovative way. The way we would like now to go is to try to use better this financial instrument and the possibility of blending grants with financial instruments. And we have also developed new tools that operationalize this concept of utilizing these new tools, such as the green shipping. So we remain, of course, open to discuss any project you would have, and I will conclude by putting here my name, my email address, and also a few websites for our partners in the EIB, but also for our executive agency, in case you would need more information about the grants, the calls, and also the schemes such as FC and green shipping that the EIB is doing in partnership with us. Thank you very much.
Smart money is never too long, so you were just in time. So thank you very much. This concludes our institutional session, the first part. If there is any question that cannot wait, I can still allow one question, then we'll move for the industrial stakeholder session, where we'll have Grimaldi lines, Stena lines, and the Greek Ship Owners Association. So that would be the two. Any question? What is your bank account? Number? That one, you go to the website and it will be. Well, thank you very much. Institutionalists, regulators, thank you very much for the support to Motorways of the Sea. We will now go to the industrial stakeholders. Thank you. So could I call on Manuel Grimaldi, please? Who is the managing director of the Grimaldi Group, and he is the CEO and president of Green Lines, and he's also the co-president of Rotterdam. So, Manuel, please, welcome. Thank you very much. And could you please step in? Yeah, whatever you want. We have Niklas Martinsson, who is the deputy CEO of Stena Line. And we have the Port of Venice, and we have Caranaffos Simandonis. Would you go close to him? He is the CEO of the RIC, and he's representing the Atlantic Shore Sea Association World, so both the passengers and the cargo. Okay, gentlemen, we will start now the industrial stakeholder session, and we will start with Dr. Grimaldi giving us his address. Will you speak from your chair?
Hello. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Emanuele Grimaldi. I'm the president of the Italian Shipowner Association and also the managing director of Grimaldi Lines. I wish to thank Joao, Mr. Simpson, for inviting me here. It's a great privilege and a pleasure to be here and to speak to you. The motorways of the sea. We all say, you know, that it is quite desirable, it is important, that it's very good from also the environmental aspects. But often people are saying, you know, that they didn't develop sufficient. We are not happy because there should be more volume should go via sea, and perhaps only a small part. But most of the time, when I was talking to these people who sometimes, I must say, even in Italy, there is not the perception in our country of what the motorways of the sea are. I have heard sometimes in Italy saying, you know, but we should develop the motorway of the sea because they are moving too little. And they're only counting the tons transported, perhaps by land and by sea. But for every transportation by sea, in tons, there is 2-3 transportation by road. Because before and after you transport, so to make a statistics of tons transported by land and by sea, it doesn't mean anything. First of all, because when we transport from Palermo to Genoa, we are transporting for over 1,000 kilometers, whilst perhaps the distribution that happens 3 times, so 3 tons are moved by land, is only for 10 kilometers. So I think there is a very wrong perception of motorways of the sea. And most of the statistics are not addressing seriously the issue of the development of motorways of the sea. And I must say that in some of these cases, I made a trial. And I have asked some of the big journalists, sometimes even to big ship owners and brokers, what they thought were the numbers of the people moving on motorway of the sea, what was the number of cars moving on motorway of the sea, and what was the number of trailers and lorries moving on motorway of the sea. You wouldn't believe the ignorance that I have found out. You wouldn't believe some of these so-called huge experts that were talking about the fact they didn't know what we were talking about. And they didn't have the slightest perception. Sometimes the mistake was not 1 time, 10 times, sometimes 100 times. Because when I said, no, I don't know the numbers, they were a bit embarrassed. They said, but why you don't make a guess? Why you don't try, say a number? And when I asked the number was regularly either 10 times less, 100 times less. So I think we have to start with the numbers, perhaps addressing really what are the numbers of, for instance, the people moving by motorways of the sea. And when I mean motorways of the sea, I'm saying ferries that are transporting people in less than 24 hours. You wouldn't believe the number. And I think make an exercise, try to think what the number would be, and you would be really surprised. The number is 2.1 billion people. Is only 5% less than all the planes all over the world. This is huge. And when we come, for instance, to the cars, how many cars are moved on motorways of the sea? The number of cars which are built every year all over the world are, you know, I'm in car carriers as well, so I know very well this number, 74 billion now. 73 last year, 72 2 years ago. But you wouldn't believe the number of cars moving on motorway of the sea are 250 million cars. 4 times more than all the cars who are built all over the world. Nearly 4 times more. And then we come now to the lorries, to the environmental part of moving lorries and of course trailers mainly on motorways of the sea. There the number is huge as well. We are talking about 40 million lorries. That, just to give an example, if you put them in line, they would do 14 times the transport around the globe. So you go through the equator, you can put them all together, or 1.5 times from Earth to the moon and back. We know it's 40,000 kilometers is the equator, you know, the circumference of the Earth. And we are talking instead of 600,000. So you get out of this, then it is a European success story or not? I think it is a European success story. 30 million out of the 30 million lorries moving on Earth, they are in the European seas. 10 million about in the Baltic, about 10 million on North Sea, slightly less than 10 million on the Mediterranean. So 30 out of 40 million lorries are moving from Europe to all over the place. Only 10 million left are. If you look instead for the passengers, we are slightly less than 1 billion, and 1 billion is in the Far East. 400 million is in the Mediterranean. If we talk Mediterranean is 400 million passengers, 9.7 million lorries. So the numbers are really huge. So before saying, I think this is definitely a successful story. Perhaps it's not known because we are at sea, so you don't see too much what is happening, because the shipping line are at sea. And perhaps the perception is not so big because it's extremely fragmented, but also extremely competitive. Because on most of the lines you find 2-3 operators operating on the sector. So it has been a success story. I think we have worked, and I think it's very much a European success. And of course, motorways of the seas and the inclusion of motorway of the sea in the European policy has been very important. And also, the work that you have done is very precious. I must say that this year, although I think Europe has done an extraordinary work in promoting, I was not happy to find out that this year the money was not spent. And also, I think that we are having a wrong perspective on the environmental improvement that we should do. And why is this? Mainly because we are all seeing gas as the panacea of all the problems, which I believe that is not the case. First of all, I have heard, you know, that it's a non-fossil fuel. Gas is a fossil fuel. And I have also heard that somebody, we were just heard from the German member of parliament, that I would like to thank for talking about the rescue at sea. 40 million people have been rescued, and of all the fleet in the world, the Italian fleet was the one, because we are very close to where it's happening, the things, but we have rescued the highest number of people. And I think before Frontex and this new initiative of the European Commission, really some of our vessels were in a very difficult position, because sometimes with a small vessel with only 12 people on board, you had to rescue 500-600 people, and this was without preparation, without knowledge, without, so that was a big risk, although we have to do it and we will do it, and I think but I think we should be a bit more organized also on this sector. But coming back on the environmental issues and this gas, I don't know if people know, but the emissions are there as well. The emissions that you have with gas are very close to the same. The only, of course, you don't have the content of sulfur, you have the high content of sulfur. But I don't know if people know, but when there is, for instance, you are fueling the vessel, if you have dispersion and you don't see it because it's not black, like the fuel from the sulfur that comes out, if you have a small dispersion of 1%, that is 25 times more poisoning, or with an effect that is 5 times worse than the emission of CO2, as far as the green gas problem, and even for the heating of the planet, 25 times worse. And even when you turn a vessel of dual fuel from one fuel to the other, you might have the same thing happen. When you are fueling up a vessel, you have dispersion. When you are passing from one to the other, you have dispersion. You don't see it. You don't see the black funnel or the sulfur coming out. In any case, where we have addressed and we have invested heavily on scrubbers, last year we have been helped and assisted on this environmental effort by the European Commission. This year, although we were not advised, we have been working on this, and we have even invested in some of the most sophisticated technology which of course closed loop and more expensive. Just for one vessel, just to give you an idea, we have spent up to 7 million euro for just to address one vessel with the most sophisticated. But this was not considered, whilst it is considered only today, it seems from the result that we have seen, money has not been spent, scrubbers have not been taken into consideration, but also other projects have not been taken into consideration. And I think it's a pity, because if it is desirable to continue to develop the motorway of this year, we have to invest some money. And I want to say, you know, that although we might think that it is big money for the cohesion of Europe, and within, if you put this money in comparison with what Europe is spending, for instance, for the railway, is zero. We are talking of a very, very small percentage. And it doesn't look good that this very, very small percentage is not even spent, although the projects were there. And I am sure that these projects were good projects and are going in the right direction to develop motorways of this year. Still, when we say to develop motorway, we say sometimes, I don't think that basically, if it is not an environmental project, that we need to be sponsored at all. I am frightened when there is European money coming in projects, because most of the time they would distort competition, the existing competition. Because I don't see that if there is a good reason to give it for one project when there is another project that, or there is another line that is doing the same work. So I think I am very critical about the help and the assistance given to certain lines and operation, because they would only move cargo from, distort competition, move cargo and money from one to the other shipper. So if we need an accelerator of the process, and if we need to accelerate motorways of the sea, then give the money to the operator, to our client. Give some money, which must be much less than the environmental or the external cost. So say you can count the external cost of mobility by road, for instance, and you say you assess that the cost for a lorry to go from Germany to, let's say, Finland, perhaps, just to make an example, the cost would be 200-300 euros. Then give 1/3, give 80, give something just to the operator who is choosing to go via ship. But of course this, for the whole of the society, it's a big advantage, because the society will save 200 euros. Although the European Commission might pay an eco bonus of, let's say, or Euro bonus, or whatever it is, Mare bonus, or whatever it is, but this money is much less than the environmental cost that society would pay in case of traffic, noise, and all the externality that exists by land. But this would leave the sovereignty of the customer, who can choose if he likes best to go with Stena, the FDS, Grimaldi, Finland, or whatever is the line. And I think this is very, very important too, because we cannot distort the competition, because that would be very negative, I think, for all the parties involved, and also for the owners who started first in this process of improving. Then I want to pass generally a little bit on this environmental, because shipping is always or often crucified and looked as the problem of the emission. And I want to put this into perspective. What is the total emission of the shipping sector? This again, before we speak, we have to know the numbers. The numbers are, is only 2.2% of the emission of CO2. So I think that, considering that we are transporting 90% of the cargo worldwide, I think that shipping is more a solution than the problem. Is the solution. So to move more cargo via sea is the solution. It's not, and should not be seen as a sector who is, of course we can do better, of course we are doing better, of course we are trying to improve on our performance. We're not only trying, we are delivering. From 2006 to today, we have reduced the externalities of about 15%, the shipping sector, and also the transport has increased instead of about 14%. So the improvement of the shipping sector from the years 2007 to today is about 30. And I also advocate all, because I repeat, gas is a type of fuel. The 0.1 is a type of fuel. The 1% is a type of fuel. Gas oil is a type of fuel. There are different types of fuel, perhaps methylene, there are other, but what we have to try to avoid or to reduce is the total emissions. In other words, we have to have more effective paints. And you know that silicone paints have improved sometimes, especially in the hot water, over 10%, the performance of a ship. Then there is also retrofitting of better propellers. A better propeller can improve up to 20%. I have changed propeller with modern and very good propellers with a contract already with Rolls-Royce and other very big, also with Bars, other very big producer in Europe, which gave fantastic result. Particularly if you are reducing the speed because every propeller is made for the particular speed and particular. So you can make a huge improvement. But also a huge improvement can be done, and I think this is very important for you to assess what are the best projects. It is retrofit on jumbo jazzing vessel. Because if some of these things are done, you can have often vessels that will improve their performance with zero emission. If you are lengthening a vessel and you are having perhaps 1,000 more linear meters on a Stena vessel, from 3,000 to 4,000. Once you make this improvement, this environmental is much better than any, because the emission is close to zero. The marginal increase of consumption is zero, whilst you have much more possibility of transport. So in the future, I think you should look at this type of projects, because environmentally they give the best of all the performance. In any case, I know there are other talkers, so I leave you and I thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
And please, I would urge you to share with us for the corrected EIP, the source of your figures that are really impressive. So thank you very much for it. It's a very good case for you. Because you have 10 minutes. I should have said that beforehand. So you have 10 minutes.
Yeah, I will use the 10 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, very nice to see all of you here. First of all, I would actually like to express my thanks to and the importance of the need of the Motorways of the Sea. The Motorways of the Sea program is essential to secure a sustainable future and a sustainable development. For Stena Line, we can actually look forward, or actually saying thank you very much for a great cooperation when it's coming to both our scrubber projects, but also the methanol conversion of Stena Yamanica. And Stena Yamanica, she was converted into methanol 1.5 years ago. She's now she's reduced the sulfur and the air particles with 90%, 90. It was a cost of 22 million euro, and we are continuing looking into this project as a very good project. The next step we are taking when it's coming to Stena Yamanica being even more environmental friendly than reducing with 90% is actually to start fueling her up with a biomethanol, which means that you can't get closer to a zero emission than sailing with biomethanol. We must all know here that Europe, as we heard from Mr. Grimaldi, is very dependent on ferries as a part of a functional infrastructure. We are talking about 800 million passengers, 200 million cars, and 40 million trucks and lorries who actually choosing to travel with ferries in Europe every year. Ferries, and I think this is very important, is also supporting the global trend of urbanization. We actually are using an existing infrastructure called water, and we're also supporting the whole congested infrastructure and traffic on land and on roads. We heard from the commissioner, the MP from Brussels here, that ferries are safe. I would actually say it's the safest transport solution. By being a safe or the safest transport solution doesn't mean that we can now just lean back and enjoy and feeling comfortable. This is an ongoing process where we daily must improve the safety awareness, improve the safety quality, but also practice and training and training. And from our perspective, it's much more a good investment out from a safety perspective to use the money on training than out from a regulatory perspective adding more steel to the ship. Training is the solution. The shipping industry and Stena Line, we also care for the environmental perspective, as I told you about Stena Yamanica. We can see big improvements in reducing bunker consumption, improved fuel quality, and new alternative fuels. And I would actually add there, preferably non-fossil fuels. And I'm addressing this to all those who actually found, and I'm really pinpointing this, who found LNG as the future solution. It is not the future solution talking about LNG. LNG is still a fossil bunker. When we are talking about a sustainable future out from a bunker perspective, we are talking about electricity, battery, and also wind. That's a sustainable solution to invest in the future. We also see out both from an environmental perspective and a safety perspective that we are focusing more on digitalization and technical solutions. We can see improvements in environmental impact, new energy systems, intelligence onboard systems, but also the use of big data to track, but also to predict the environmental impacts and improvements. So big data and predictable data is also part of the future out from an environmental and safety perspective. So all those developments must continue and improve for us to be in the forefront. So in other words, we must encourage brave forefront runners like Stena Line and other colleagues in the industry, together with Motorways of the Sea, to continue develop and improve in the right direction, so actually shipping will continue to be the most attractive alternative to be transported by. And I would say, after this session, I hope that the buzzword at the lunchtime here will be decarbonization and electricity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for helping us setting up what is the Motorways of the Sea strategy, because we need to address short-term problems, medium-term problems, and long-term issues. And we have been trying to support those three things, and we would like very much to go along with you. And that's why we are inviting real ship owners to come and share the knowledge with us. So thank you very much for this. Thank you. And now, not you, Antonio. Now it's the third ship owner, is Mr. Carolampo Simantonis, who is the president of the Atlantic Shorty Shipping Ship Owner Association, but which I believe is also representing, so in general, the ship owners, the shorty shipping ship owners in Greece, both for passengers and for cargo.
Yes, okay. I spent only 6 minutes. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to thank organizer, especially Mr. Simpson and Mr. Anselmo, for inviting me to this important event for the maritime transport. Environment is the major challenge for our sector, and the ability of the European short sea shipping fleet to comply with forthcoming regulations will determine the future of the industry. The new 0.5% sulfur means that ships will need to burn more expensive fuels or adapt new technologies. Roughly, on a global basis, the cost is estimated at around $50 billion per year. The new regulations aim at ensuring a sustainable and greener character for the shipping industry. However, they also embrace a serious threat to the European Union shipping, the massive compliance of the fleet to new requirements. This wouldn't have been a problem if the short sea shipping fleet comprised of new vessels. It is estimated, nonetheless, that the average age of short sea shipping fleet in Europe is 20 years, while the respective one in the south is 25 years. The presented implemented plan recognizes the problem of the aging fleet as a pan-European one and seeks coordinated actions and sustainable solutions open to all parties involved. Our position over the last years has been the attention must be also given to the ships apart from the infrastructures, otherwise without ships the infrastructures will be useless. The plan highlights not only ships retrofitting, but also the renewal of short sea shipping fleet as the necessary precondition to achieve a sustainable European transport system. During the previous 3 fora, multiple ideas and solutions were suggested, and we, as Hellenic Short Sea Owners Association, feel really satisfied that our initiative, Europa Sea Plan, has been recognized as an attractive solution. In few words, the Europa Venture, the SPV established for the implementation of the Europa Sea Plan, acts as a multi-financing platform aiming to facilitate the access of ship owners, especially those of the South, to the necessary financial tools for achieving compliance to the new regulations, while at the same time improves the safety of the ships and the quality of the provided transport services. In this frame, the Europa Venture has created a pool of ship owners interested in renewing their fleet and is currently in the process of obtaining the best quotations for shipbuilding or ship retrofitting, of course, of vessels in European Union shipyards using European Union equipment. This mass construction project is expected to counterbalance through the generated economies of scales the cost difference of new building that use LNG as fuel and which is approximately 25% more compared to a standard designed vessel. Of course, this mechanism is open to all ship owners and can be seen as a pan-European solution for financing risk sharing. Furthermore, as far as coastal shipping in Greece is concerned, almost 50% of the itineraries are subsidized, and as such, the ESP provides the necessary solutions to our complex coastal system, which otherwise will result to its collapse. ESP is a strategic one that can effectively correspond to the European short sea shipping fleet renewal, while at the same time these new ships can also be considered an exportable product, given that their innovative construction process will make them very competitive as they will comply with majority of regulations mandatory in various places around the world. We welcome the solutions included in the detailed implementation plan because these reflect the actual needs of the sector. The preparatory meetings with the formulation of the DIP offered change to the stakeholders of the industry who face similar concerns and problems to sit together and exchange ideas, each from his own perspective. In this context, Europa Venture collaborates with the Zero Vision Tour, which shares the same vision with shipping stakeholders from Sweden, Finland, Spain, Romania and Cyprus. This is only the start of an ongoing dialogue aiming at improving Europe's transport system in order to achieve higher levels of efficiency. We, the Hellenic Short Sea Shipping Association and the Greek Ship Owners Association for Passenger Ships, collaborated and we will continue to do so with the European Union in order to exploit the full potential of short sea shipping and contribute to the formulation of win-win strategies. The plan will further contribute to the revitalization of the shipbuilding industry in Europe and the generation of new employment positions. Finally, part of the improvement will be transferred to the end user due to the reduction of the construction and the lower service cost, while it will assist in the modal shift of cargo flows from road to sea. Thank you very much for listening.
Sorry, We have now listened to the shipowning side. I have obviously a mental problem with these microphones, sorry for that. And we'll move now for the ports. And representing the ports, we have from the Port of Venice Authority, my dear friend Antonio Rebedin, who is the Director for Strategic Planning and Development of the Venice Port Authority. Antonio, the floor is yours for 10 minutes. After that, it will fall down. So,
thank you, Jose, and thank you to Mr. Simpson and to you, because I must underline that is, I can see that next year will be a decade that we started with the first project together, that it was Adriamos, and it was regarding maritime links from Venice to Igoumenitsa in Greece, and it's thanks to this project that nowadays Venice can host direct RoRo services from Greece, and the vessel can find along the quayside directly the train to the center of Europe. This, I think, is a very successful example of the motorways of the sea policies all of you have carried out in this date. Thank you once more. I want to take the chance today to talk about a couple of issues that are affecting the shipping activities, the shipping transportation activities nowadays. The first one is concerning, as most of you probably know, the One Belt, One Road strategy that was launched a couple of years ago from the Chinese President Xi Jinping, that concerned an incredible amount of money, of infrastructure investment, which with hundreds of billions of financial coverage from China to reach Europe and to consolidate the China's commercial trade. The question is that, and we are already talking about how this strategy could be compatible with the TEN-T, and how we can really make it sustainable with the choice that are made today in Europe. And we are even talking about, in the recent weeks, about an overcapacity in port system in Europe. But it's a matter of fact that the Chinese are approaching Europe through the countries in which port and transport infrastructure are weaker. So this is a matter of fact we have to consider in the next future and the next policies. Maybe the actual balancing of port infrastructure is not suitable for the next future economical geography of Europe. The other issues I wish to point out today is regarding the Mediterranean, the sea in which, as Port of Venice, we operate, and a lot of ship owners and ports. You know, we cannot say or mention a level play field when we talk about Mediterranean, because, as you know, we are living a special situation. We are living a situation in which the other banks, the southern banks of the southern side of the Mediterranean is in a very unstable situation with a lot of conflicts. It's a special situation that now more than ever needs a special effort to improve relations and to consolidate the country that are still maintaining a level of civilization. And my thinking goes to the famous program that was launched in 2005 by Loyola de Palacio, MOTORWAYS, a network of motorways for development and peace. We need such special programs to to make our ship owner with to face the situation and to develop the relation with such countries in order to try to stabilize as much as possible the trade in the Mediterranean. And this, I think, has to be achieved once more, because it was already part of and achieved and reviewed by the European Commission. This is our suggestion to work together for even for the next decade. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Antonio. So this concludes, thank you very, very much. This concludes our industrial stakeholder session. So I would now ask Nigel Laurie, who is a well-known shipping journalist. I love these words, shipping journalist. To come and steer the coming roundtable where we'll have a number of actors in the shipping industry joining us. So thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you very much for your participation. Allow me to say that I'm very happy that I was allowed for the last 25 years to be of service, to be a civil servant servicing the European industry and the European stakeholders. Thank you very much for allowing me to do that. And I hope that we still cooperate together. So, Nigel, the floor is yours, and of course, I call on Lord John Prescott, who is a passionate man for shipping. He's there. I know your project was not approved, but you're a passionate man for shipping. Lord John Prescott, first experience was in maritime transportation, so then he became, I don't know why, probably related to the fact that he was in maritime transportation, Vice Prime Minister in the UK, so Deputy Prime Minister. Ellen Jensen, Panayotis Zakariadakis, Vicente Del Rio, Elena Servazio, and Alexio Pico, who is the eco-social leader dealing with our, please have a sit. Vicente, whatever you want to sit. You pick your choice, I mean. Yeah, okay, whatever. Close to the way out. Okay, please step in. Just a final word of advice. We have been very cool about this, very relaxed, it's very good. I mean, we have heard staggering numbers, really, and we hope that the report that we are preparing, that we have prepared, that Brian has prepared, will be, again, of service, will be a tool used by the Commission to identify key objectives, and that we can be of service, that will listen to the industry, that will listen to the stakeholders. That's the purpose of it, and we hope that it reflects that. So thank you very much. Now the floor is yours. Steer us, please. Elena Servazio is the first one on the next page.
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you very much for the introduction, Jose. I'm not sure that being a shipping journalist is quite as exciting and romantic and above all remunerative as you perhaps think it might be. But it's certainly my pleasure to be here with you today. And thank you very much to DG Mo for inviting me to participate. We've heard a lot about the subject from participants in one respect and another, and I think that overall you've had a very, very good introduction to some of the key points and hot topics surrounding motorways of the seas. For centuries, the only method of moving people and goods overseas was shipping, and still today, as you know, because many of you are stakeholders in the shipping sector, still 90% of world trade is carried by sea because simply there is no alternative at all. and that also goes for 75% of the EU's external trade. So it's kind of extraordinary, I think, that in many respects you could call shipping Europe's best kept secret. How is that possible? A majority of the general public know next to nothing about shipping. Most European businesses, whether they are beneficiaries of shipping services or not, actually have very little contact directly with shipping, and consequently very little understanding of it. We're all beneficiaries of shipping services, whether we know it or not. And Lloyd's List, the media organization that I work for, has been providing information about the maritime industry since 1734. And that's a very long time indeed. It's, you know, really the oldest, most traditional, big transport industry there is on Earth. So it's a very old, tried and tested method of transport between coastal nations. And I think the Motorways of the Seas can be called a visionary project, because it's focused on this oldest of transport industries, and it's, I think, correctly identified it as the most modern. It's identified it as the modern solution. And it's done so because, and it is the modern solution because of its unrivaled economies of scale and its unrivaled potential to meet the environmental needs of our time. I think it's probably enough from me for the time being. We have an extremely distinguished panel who I'm very glad is joining me for this, what I hope will be a brief, sparky and above all efficient debate. So perhaps I can introduce you to all the panelists. I'm sure you're familiar with them anyway. Lord John Prescott of the House of Lords. He began his parliamentary work in 1917, and he's held several government positions, including head of the Department for Environment, Transport and the Regions. And prior to his political career, as I'm sure you know, Lord Prescott worked for the UK Merchant Navy and has since maintained a keen interest in shipping, so he knows what he's talking about. Helen Jansen is responsible, hi Helen, is responsible, I'm sorry, I'm turning my back on you all. Helen Jansen is responsible for strategy and communications in the Zero Vision Tool platform, which aims at a vision of a maritime industry with no negative impact on air and water. Panagiotis Zacharidakis is the Managing Director of Ocean Finance Greece. He's involved in several Motorways of the Seas projects, and he coordinates the Europa Ship Plan, which is the sort of southern equivalent of the Zero Vision Tool in the north, aimed at the sustainable financing of short sea shipping. Vicente Del Rio is the CEO of Fundación Valencia Port since 2012, where he is responsible for budget planning, business development and institutional support in the various lines of port operations. Elena Savasio at the end, hi, is Advisory Project Principal for Lloyd's Register Quality Assurance, based in Milano, Italy. Alexio Pico, who briefly, hello, who briefly my iPad changed to Alexia Piccolo, but I fixed that. Alexio is a director at Circle, leading the consultant team to support the MOS detailed implementation plan. And he has 15 years experience in leading transport ICT projects. Antonio, has Antonio left us? Antonio is still with us, but is not going to be part of the panel. So those are the panelists. We thought that we would start off and devote a little bit of time to answering some of the key questions that came up from members of the European Parliament after the first presentation of the plan. And to summarize a few of those questions, a number of MEPs focused on the question of the safety and reliability of short sea shipping and motorways of the sea to do the job that we're all hopeful that it can do. So I thought I'd start with Lord Prescott, who's actually served on ships, and ask him, you know, where do you think that the short sea shipping industry stands in terms of safety, reliability compared to other modes of transport, and how far has it come since you actually were working in the Merchant Navy?
Hello. I was 10 years a seaman serving on Canard Lines. Was a steward, not what they usually call a seaman, but nevertheless one has been actively involved in the shipping industry. I'm very pleased with the Motor of the Sea program. I think it emphasizes the importance of shipping, not only in its contribution to moving goods as we've heard today, but also the contribution role it can make in regard to the environment. And there's a lot to talk about environment here, particularly about the fuels, the energies and efficiency. But I want to point out to you that whilst COP20 from the Kyoto Climate Change Agreement, which I was involved in negotiating in 1997, didn't specifically identify shipping, nor aircraft in that sense, but what we need to do is to recognise that COP21 has now given a target to governments. They have got to find policies that reduce the levels, produces the level reduction in carbon. That's what they've got to actually do. That will have a major effect on investment in the future. Already you're seeing it here with the Motorways of the Sea helping to finance engines or changes which have been referred to here. But the changes will come in the ports and they'll come in estuaries. We, in our side, are complaining because we haven't got our corridor, a northern one, running from Liverpool, Josie. I've come all this way for you to tell me you've lost your contract. Well, I hope we'll argue with you that shipping and corridors and ports and estuary are a crucial part of future investment. And what we're doing now, we're going ahead, Josie, we have produced a report for the low carbon for the estuary called the Economics of Low Carbon Cities. So it's beyond just shipping, it's a whole region for carbon development. And that's what we're now trying to produce for the corridor, a northern one, a very important one, because in Dover, I think one of my Dover colleagues is here, but you know, we're so congested that 87% is now going through Britain, is going down through Dover. That's not enough. Could I just say the big question, since is in and out. Well, I belong to the in, and if shipping needing global decisions and global investment, that's why Britain needs to be in the middle of it. And I must dash back after this conference and go and vote for that principle that Britain should remain part of Europe.
Thanks very much for that comment. And a number of MEPs were interested in having more detail on the safety and reliability, including Wim van der Kamp of the Netherlands, Claudia Mendeiro de Aguirre of Portugal. Eleanor, I wondered if you would like to add a comment, because you're very experienced in quality assessment, in the regulatory side as well. What's your perspective on the degree of regulation and quality and responsibility out there in the shipping industry compared with other modes of transport?
Well, I think that the level is good. Can you hear me? Yeah. The level is good. What is important, I'm an expert on sustainability. We always have to remember that sustainability has the three main pillars: the economic, the social and the environmental aspects. And the safety of the motorways of the sea is not only, we don't have just to, we are in a round table looking for the future. Okay, so we have done a lot. We focused on the safety of people on the ships. We still need to focus on common KPIs related to safety, not only on the ships, but also on all the impacts related to safety of people and also of goods around in the chain. So that is what we have to look at when we were talking about safety in the motorways, not what we have done still today, because it's something that we have consolidated. We need to look what we have to do tomorrow to grant the safety of people, to grant the safety of goods, of financial aspects, for example. So this is what I want to bring to this round table, not to just focus on a little impact that we have in this project. We have to think in a sustainable way and have a more global vision of what is the MOS and what are the potential of this project to bring a new model of sustainable future for future generation. That is what we have to focus on. So that is my reply, not just to understand what is compliance to local regulation or to European regulation. It is not our target. If we still focus to be compliant to what is required by the regulation, we will never look to a sustainable world, because we will always focus to today and not to tomorrow, to what we want to be and not to what we are. So that is my reply, sorry.
That's a very good reply, thank you very much. Yes, I mean, you mentioned the entire logistics chain and to have a global view of it. And sitting next to you, Alexio, you have a great deal of experience of these things. And reading the detailed implementation plan, I must say that I had my own, I was interested in actually knowing a little bit more about how the integration, how the systems, we heard earlier from the Maritime Affairs Director of Netherlands, how complex some of the maritime systems are, how difficult it can be to streamline some of these elements of the logistic chain. So Alexio, what's your perspective on what the main challenges are to achieve the necessary degree of integration that is going to make the Motorways of the Seas project a success?
Thanks, Nigel. And I think that the answer is based on my 15 years experience in ICT and transport projects, is on 3 levels. There are 3 dimensions to take into account. First one, of course, in order to have an effective maritime transport integration into the door-to-door logistic chain, the first one is infrastructure, for sure. The accessibility of ports, both from the maritime side and from the road and rail side, is still to be solved. It's not still fully there. Specifically, in terms of rail, for instance, there are really a number of bottlenecks that should be tackled in order to achieve this maritime transport integration in the logistic chain from the infrastructure side. And then we have more the side that is based on two sides. One is processes, simplifying and streamlining processes. This is not only from the purely business-to-business logistic side, but also from the business-to-administration. Think about custom processes. A lot of improvements have been done, but still there is a way to go in improving custom processes all over Europe. And obviously, when we talk about processes, we talk about ICT, integrating ICT systems of the different actors on the logistic chain. And in this respect, I think both on processes and on ICT, Motorway of the Sea has already contributed a lot in this respect. I'll give you just 2 examples. In one Motorway of the Sea project, a big shipper has been provided with a platform that we can call it corridor information platform, corridor information pipeline, that is exactly in line also with the digital agenda for transport policy. They can use this platform in order to have a unique access to all the cargo that are shipped for them, without having, as in the past, a number of telephone calls, fax, emails, Excel file, and integrated in their systems in order to have a real just-in-time production. That's what they need. That's what most of the shipper needs in order to be effective. And in another Motorway of the Sea project, both solution has been evaluated from the return on investment side. It has been demonstrated that the return on investment of all these cargo clearance solutions and procedures is less than 2 years, that the net value is quite high, and specifically in terms of figure, for €1 invested by Europe, there are €27 in net present benefit for the actors of the logistic chain. And I think this is quite a good example of how Motorways of the Sea could contribute to an effective maritime transport integration in the logistic chain.
Another MEP question that was asked the other day was when there are going to be really detailed statistics on the effectiveness of the motorways of the seas in order to better gauge the results.
Okay, I can answer in my capacity of leading the consortium. First of all, it's quite important to mention that data and data gathering is a key part of the detailed implementation plan. So we started 3 months ago, and we have in our consortium the Institute for Shipping and Logistics from Bremen. They are quite well known and specialized in data gathering. And what we did already, that is already here, this is already here in the detailed implementation plan 2016, is a number of data demonstrating the overview of the shipping operation in Europe, but more than that, also an examples of how we are going to profile all the ports in Europe. Meaning that for all of them, specifically core and comprehensive ports, talking about trans-European network, we are going to provide a number of data and technical parameters that are related to trade traffic, sea connection, interland traffic. This is very important in terms of future understanding and future possibility for Mr. Brian Simpson also to select development priority based on reliable and quality data. This is an ongoing process. The next step will end of 2016. So we can be more, let's say, broad in terms of number of data that will be provided, more than what is already there, that can be useful to be seen as an example. And last point I would like to mention that already in the DIP, the 9 core network corridors are shown with real market data showing the existing connections between all the ports in the different sections of the core network corridors. This is already a picture of the state-of-the-art of what Motorways of the Sea is, and obviously it's the starting point for what Motorways of the Sea could be.
Thank you. In looking at the whole logistic chain, of course, ports are extremely important, and a couple of MEPs, for example, Jacina Meissner of Germany, Michael Kramer of Germany, were interested to know more about what ports need to play their role fully in the system. But they also picked up on things like the lack of port reception facilities around Europe for oily water separation or garbage, you know, things that perhaps a lot of people imagined that were taken care of, issues that were taken care of long ago. And someone made the comment that actually very few ports around Europe have adequate reception facilities. So, number one, is that true? And secondly, a wider question, you know, from the port perspective, what now needs to be done quickly so that terminals can play their part in this as well?
Working now. Okay, thank you very much for the question. From our perspective, we are an institution that is inserted in the Spanish port system. We are working in concrete from the Port of Valencia ecosystem of organizations and companies. So before entering in detail in the answer, I want to say that we have been lucky. In these past 6 years, we have collaborated in several Motorways of the Sea initiatives, and our contribution has been in the 3 pillars, different initiatives, different projects. But for the ports, most importantly than our contribution as a concrete organization is the fact that Motorways of the Sea has offered us a way to work together with all the ecosystem of companies and different interests that cohabit in a port system. And this is important because normally the challenges, and some of them were mentioned by you. But normally the challenges that we live in the ports are not challenges for the port authority, are not challenges for a concrete actor, are challenges that have to be solved in a communitary mood and way. And many times these Motorways of the Sea initiatives have allowed us to form these groups that work together and that share the challenge and the definition of the solution, that are able to prototype, to pilot things, to come to solutions. And in our experience, we have been able to involve several companies focused on concrete objectives, and we have created the habit, the positive habit of developing the problems and looking for solutions and sharing the information and measuring the effects of what was designed and defined. And many times to put people together to think is not easy, because we are not easy thinking together. And for us, Motorways of the Sea, apart from other things, has the beauty that allows many people in the port ecosystem to sit together and to think about solutions and to share the problems and define the prototypes and see real definitions for these solutions. We have plenty of examples. We have participated with Alessio and with other companies and we have measured and we have come out with these projects with around 5 million of co-founded 5 million euros of co-found that produced for each euro 27 euros of net benefit in the next 10 years. We have been disciplined to measure from a quantifiable perspective what were the results. And at the end, what we think the beauty of all these Motorways of the Sea is that we have created a positive habit between the different actors in the port ecosystem to focus and to solve concrete challenges and to measure the results of that solutions. And if we cannot afford to lose that positive habit. So for us is critical the continuity of the program to the future, because more important than the number of euros that we will earn by the concrete initiatives is that we have created a group and a way of working together that can solve a lot of problems. So from our perspective, this is the important message for the future, that we need a bigger and stronger Motorways of the Sea initiative, because everything that has been created in terms of people working together and people thinking together is the most valuable thing that we have achieved for the future.
Thank you. Of course, there has been an impression among some people in the past that when European programs tried to take into account the maritime sector, that it did so up until the point of the sea itself and stopped. And there's been a lot of concentration on ports, but until now perhaps not quite so much on the ships themselves, because it's been taken for granted that ships, well, it's not like rail that needs government investment. There's a shipping industry out there, and it will sort of do whatever it has to do. And to that extent, I think it's been taken for granted sometimes. There have been outstanding examples of pioneer shipping companies that have seen the potential of this program, like Stena, like Grimaldi, that we've heard from. But in fact, I think sometimes that's been a rarity, and that as pioneers, you haven't always been followed in interest by the greater part of the shipping community. But I think that's changing. and we have two representatives on the panel who are really from that side of things. Helen, who is representing Zero Vision Tool in the north, who is working with 130 different companies on 20 different projects. And Panagiotis, who is working with the Europa Ship Plan in the south, which I think has already got something like 40 very, very solid expressions of interest from companies for participating in this scheme once it is successful in securing finance to go ahead with the renewal of the fleet. So perhaps we could hear from you about, what are the problems that you see in actually turning this increase in interest from the shipping industry itself to actually achieve the priorities and potential of the Motorway of the Seas project. And I see Panos has got the mic, but like a true Greek gentleman, he's sort of tempted to hand it to the ladies first. No? Oh, he's going to go ahead.
Okay.
So we're hearing from the south first. Well, and I should say that it's also impressed me that also for the first time, to my knowledge, there is a real effort to integrate the north and the south as well, that the two sides have come together in their grand projects to try to coordinate to an extent which I'm not aware of as having been done before, which I think is a great sign.
Thank you, Nigel, for the question. I think that we all agree that shipping now, especially social shipping, is facing huge challenges. And I would like to name them challenges and not threats, because we have to be optimistic about the future and come with something very good out of it and create win-to-win challenges, not only for shipping, but also for the shipbuilding industry and also in general for the European citizens. The challenges are well known, the 2020 sulfur cap in the Mediterranean Sea, some new regulations that we expect about the NOx, the CO2, the particles, the ballast water treatment, the MRV. So shipping needs a lot of investments. And the same applies also for ports, but if I give you an example about the Greek situation, we will be more than happy with 50 million for the port of Piraeus in order to deploy LNG as fuel and have it there for the vessels, but we will need more than 10 times this amount of money so that we have the first critical mass of vessels that they will use LNG or they will be compatible with these new regulations. And I'm really happy that as Stefano Aki announced, this new EIB financing tool will be available very soon, so that all these owners can see whether they can be eligible and get financing from these new tools. But I have to stress out that it's not one size that fits all. And since we have huge difference, the shipowners from the south, from the south, from the shipowners from the north. For instance, we have more than 1,300 vessels with an average age of 25 years. And we are talking mainly for renewal, not for re-engine or for retrofits. And it is totally different thing to finance somebody for a new vessel or to finance somebody if he cannot present other securities, or if the vessels that he now possesses are not highly valued so that can be seen as securities or another sorts of collaterals. But let's see what this EIB financing tool will be, and I think that it can overcome the difficulty of the commercial banks to finance social shipping. And as we are discussing with several of them, we have seen that the majority of them, they have a threshold, let's say 30,000 tons of weight. Below that threshold, they are not keen to finance the vessels, because for those kind of vessels, the performance is not known. There are no dedicated key performance indicators like for Supramax or for Aframax or VLCCs. If you go to Clarksons, you cannot find this kind of information. What is the second one times? What is the performance of those vessels? So no bank is willing to undertake the risk, but I think that with this coverage by EIB and the UK Bank, this can be solved. And also, one thing I would like also to mention is that we think that through the financial blending, we cannot distort the competition. We are not talking about grants, we are talking about loans, guarantees, and possibly for some cases we could use some assistance through grants, through the cohesion or the general core or the regional funds. And I think that this is the way forward for the majority of the supporters.
Thank you. Huh? An old hand.
Thank you so much. Yes. Yes, as you mentioned, Nigel, it's 130 different organizations collaborating in 20 different projects in the north, and it's over 9 different countries that are collaborating. And the most important part is the ship owners, it's the ports, it's the contractors, and most importantly also customers that are involved. We started in late 2011, and every quarter each of the projects supply information on their progress regarding regulation, on the vessel themselves, on the infrastructure and financing issues. If there are more research and development questions, they are also supporting that. So they are doing a tremendous work, and I'm impressed every day. So I'm no one, really, the industry is. These information reports are then supplied to regulators and also as input to different organizations within the EU. The important part here is that these reports have so far, from the beginning, been infrastructure issues, the hen and the egg, and that was in 2012. And very luckily we had Motorways of the Sea to go and ask for grants to start up pilots in our area. And it was pilots in LNG, it was in methanol, as you heard before, and also scrubber technology. They parts of the infrastructure problems and doing that together, which is very impressive, I think. Later on, the information was that the struggle were regulations, because when they started and actually implementing these things, regulation wasn't really in place. New things needed to be discussed, as we've been hearing here before as well. And now, the next issue will be the financial mechanism, as we heard. And the one that is proposed from the north is actually to look into the extra cost. So it's not that you want to implement and build new ships, because you can still. It's actually building green ships or actually investing in green ports, and the extra cost there, it's much higher. So what is proposed is to have a temporary solution where the green investment will be the new normal. However, while doing that, we still need to have the grants for the pilots to continue to develop. And we need to have other solutions. So I'm very happy to hear the EIB with the new products. But then again, there need to be different types of solutions, because nothing can be like one only solution. It depends on what trade you have. It depends on what types of ships you have. It depends on which port location you have. So it's to offer different solutions. So again, it's the financial mechanisms that are the next step to actually try to implement this green and safe transport mode. And by that also strengthen the competitiveness of Europe, strengthen all the job opportunities that this implies. We heard several good numbers before, so I don't have to repeat that. So yes, it's the industry that needs to do it, and they are willing to do it. It's important to remember. So the support that can be given in grants or in different types of financial instruments is the next step. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's a very good point, because we talk about shipping's ability to satisfy a need of society and a need for sustainable transport intra-Europe. But sometimes we forget that it's actually a big industry in itself, the maritime industry in itself, and that's sometimes overlooked and forgotten. And when I said I thought it was a visionary project, one of the reasons for that is I think it's actually a project that will be the fulcrum for capitalizing on a real European center of expertise, because Europe has always been a leader in maritime. It's got the traditional know-how, but it's also a leader thanks partly to the MOS program in new technology and new environmental solutions. I think it leads the world in R&D in these areas, and it can be an export industry for Europe in its own right. So I think that's part of the picture too. I think probably we're sort of starting to get to the end because we're already over time, but one thing that I would be very interested in hearing your comment about, perhaps Jose first, was that Manuel Grimaldi said that, because we're discussing the very important matter of money, Mr. Grimaldi said that the amounts required to make this into a reality, although they may sound quite high, are actually a drop in the bucket compared with the kind of infrastructure which is needed in other modes of transport. And personally, I think that's correct. Do you share that view? And is the maritime motorway of the sea a value proposition, a good value use of funds economically?
Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much.
They work for me.
Obviously, yeah, but you are a master of all trades, so you can domesticate them. No, thank you very much for that. Let me just abuse of the microphone and just say two things. First of all, be truthful and transparent to our people. Is that the wardrobe closes at 2 p.m. Okay, so first thing. So it's at your risk and peril. Now, the second thing is about people and supporting the, let's say, the human way part of it. I don't like very much the word, but the human tissue. Those that are backing us up, those that are making this project happen, and those that, of course, not me, are responsible for the failures, especially that. So that is INEA mainly. So it's the team, Morten Jensen, Jakob, Jarek Kotowski, and of course Sofia Papantoniada, that after destroying all the proposals, this is moving now to innovation, where she will still destroy more proposals, so she likes it. It's a bit inspired by the Trojan War, she destroys everything. So, and welcome to Alberto and Antonio. Well, he's a newcomer, so he's not responsible, he's virginal, so it's okay, but Antonio is also part of the crime. I will not mention your name because you are a big sinner. So, but those are the guys you have to try and keep up with, because they will be your connection to a more efficient bureaucracy. Okay, that's very important. How to get access to funds. So these are important people. Now, coming back to what you were saying, I would just like to say this. I've never heard in my life such an inspiring holistic vision, like, for instance, the one of Emmanuel coming out and showing what it is. Sorry. Emmanuel, I was trying not to speak very loud about you, but okay, it's such an inspiring vision of a head of an enterprise coming here and being allowed to reveal, the way he views transportation in the world. How many people in railways undertakings can say that? Usually they speak about the price of the tickets. That's all. So I think that this shows a little bit the tissue, as well as Stena that came forward. It's a deputy CEO and is coming forward showing a vision in terms of investment, in terms of changing sustainability. So, and of course, Greece, I mean, everybody says Greece is not there, but they came to the point. How best to connect, it's an archipelago state, how best to connect all the islands, if not with shorter shipping, and being able to move into sustainable shipping, so chapeau. So it's really my appreciation for what you have done. So again, as I said, I just hope to be of service, and having helped together with Brian, and I hope now in the future with Wojtek, being able to support you, to support this drive of the industry. No other industry has the vision, no other industry has the flexibility that we need to guarantee that transportation will carry on, to be able to talk to people from 50 different countries in a port. Ship chandlers, freight forwarders, shipping companies, ship owners, they have a flexibility that we need. They have the flexibility to accommodate new solutions, to go for new ones. And don't forget that Europe, as Nigel said, is the largest trading bloc in the world. We have to renew the luster of European shipping, to renew our cultural ties that are related to shipping. That's what we should do, so that Europe has a brilliant future. Don't forget that security of supply is the world. You know, it's not by accident Marco Polo's thing stopped because there was no security of supply, or there was a better security of supply. So we need to keep the Atlantic as the main source. Why? Because keeping the Atlantic open, connecting 3 continents, you will keep all the other routes open. I would hate to have to vote all the times for Azerbaijan winning European Song Contest so that they will allow containers to pass through Azerbaijan. So I like Baku very much, but I like Europe better. So if you want to keep the routes open, back up shipping, okay? And it's a peanut, the investment that we are doing compared to what it is being done in railways. And now that I'm retired, I can say, well, railways was born with subsidies and probably will die with subsidies.
Thanks, Jose. I'd like to, very briefly, as a final contribution to this session, I'd like to ask Lord Prescott for a brief final comment, because after all, we hope it won't, but if things go badly tomorrow, this may be the last time either of us are invited to the European stage.
Hello, yeah. Yes, just to make a quick point, Mr. Grimaldi made some very powerful points, and it struck me that what he was saying is the traditional ways that we want shipping to make a contribution to low carbon is the traditional ways. Get better engines, more efficient, different fuel. And he was saying, really, when you look at our emissions and the cost we're paying for it, could it be done a different way? And he was suggesting that argument, and I think that's what's being suggested here. For example, I tried to argue about a northern corridor missing, that going from Liverpool right over to Hull up to the Baltic, and that's what trade is changing. But if you look what you save on lorries he was talking about, what lorries were costing us, there's a report in Britain come out today saying 50% of the lorries on the road are empty, causing a massive amount of carbon. So we need to start looking at the total picture, and I think what would change that way, and governments now have accepted a target, as I said, on cutting carbon. Now when they have to reach that target and actually achieve that, it's going to have different ways of integrating transport in different ways, and what shipping's only one part, the ports are the other, and this report we've done is how you look at the regions. So if you look at the total picture and begin to judge the actual priorities, it may well be on how much you could reduce low carbon and what is necessarily the cheapest or the most costly way to do it. And what he's suggesting, and I think you did as well, about the research, we need to start thinking in a more wholesome way of how we achieve the overall target instead of just putting a very heavy burden in a small part of the sector. I think that's the question being posed for us now. So we need the research to do that. I hope that will happen. But I think if it's possible, as you asked for, Joseph, for that information he was given somehow to be circulated, could start a proper debate of how we deal with the low carbon problem, to which governments have actually committed themselves, and the market way might not necessarily the best way, but working with the industry, we solve the problem without putting the heaviest burden on those where it is most costly to achieve it, when you could do it a different way. Use the Northern Corridor, we're very useful right up to the Baltic, and we can show you again a more efficient way to move things. But I think this whole business of committed to low carbon is going to change a lot of the priorities. And that one contribution by Mr. Agrawal, we went on, but it is powerful in all sectors. So I hope we'll see there is change in a fundamental way, which will change the whole priority of investments, the whole role of the integration of our transport system. Because after all, don't forget, when I might be talking about my government, it's a European target that's committed to actually reduce it, and that's why we need to see what transport can do, and needs a greater environmental dimension on this decision of the motorways. Put the green on, Josie, and I will make a better contribution.
Thanks. So many items to discuss, so much work to do. Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you very much to our panelists.
Staying alive for 2 hours. That was